Hey, it's James Murray. We're in the Net News Ledger newsroom with Andrea Horwath, leader of Ontario's New Democrats. You've been out on the trail.
I have. I have been out on the trail.
Where all have you been in the last couple of days here in northwestern Ontario?
So we've been here for about a week, not quite a week. So I've been to Thunder Bay a couple of times. I've been to Dryden. I've been to Red Lake. I've been to Eagle Lake First Nation. Been to Sioux Lookout. And I think that covers it.
What are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of frustration, to be honest with you. I'm hearing a lot of people are telling me that they sense that things are getting worse and not better, that the experience, particularly around healthcare, has been extremely negative over the last number of years, and people feel that it's getting worse. I've met with both frontline healthcare providers as well as patients, if you will, or folks who are trying to access healthcare, and it's not a good situation. It's not a good scenario, and the real worries around the kind of interjurisdictional disputes that leave mostly First Nations folks, Indigenous peoples, in a situation where they're not getting access to the healthcare they need, where they can't even get the follow-up that most people would expect in terms of their healthcare. The lack of resourcing in the nursing stations is a serious problem. The lack of access to healthcare in communities when they come in from the north is problematic, and the ongoing challenges around disease management, particularly diabetes, but others as well. It has been described to me as being third world conditions, and that's not acceptable. So there's been a lot of really negative comments around the health system here, and it's not only that. I mean, there's a real sense that folks here in the Northwest overall are just not seeing the same access to quality health care as seen in other parts of Ontario. There's long distances to travel. Oftentimes there's barriers around weather and things like that prevent people from getting what they need in terms of their health care. There's real challenges around emergency wards and overloads there, and people not having access to primary care, and so that puts pressure on emergency wards. We heard stories of people going to emergency wards in order to get their prescriptions filled.
Yes.
On top of all kinds of other services that people need, and it's almost like the emergency ward has become the only option for folks, which is not the best way to approach healthcare. So many concerns, and then on top of it, we have a provincial government that put a budget forward a couple weeks ago now that further cuts healthcare funding. I mean, they increased healthcare funding, hospital funding by 1%, but inflation's running at 1.8%. So really, I'm very concerned that the problems that exist now are only going to get worse as the government continues to squeeze hospital budgets and healthcare budgets, and not acknowledge and recognize some of the unique needs here in the north. I mean, the other thing that happened was the government decided that they were going to make it more expensive for seniors to get their prescription drugs, and so I've heard this as well. The kind of changes that increase prescription drugs costs for seniors is very worrisome. I mean, folks are having a hard time making ends meet already. Fixed income seniors are already having a challenge in terms of keeping the lights on and putting food on the table, especially in places like this where it's a lot more expensive to live. The cost of living is a lot higher. So adding $1 on each prescription, as well as increasing the deductible by 70%, is going to hit seniors really hard. And seniors have until March 31st to contact the government and ask them to back off of this decision. I mean, they put it in the budget. We went really hard on the government and tried to get them to back down. It took us 2 days, and finally, after 2 days, the Premier realized she had made a mistake, so she said she's going to go out to consultation. She didn't consult before the budget, but now that she's getting pressure, she's opened up a consultation till March 31st. So I encourage people, if you're concerned about seniors' drug costs, concerned about these kinds of issues, give the government a call your MPP, meet with your MPP, put some pressure on the Liberals to back off of these increases for prescription drugs.
Now, the other issue that has a lot of concern, especially here in the north and especially in the far north, is the sell-off of Hydro One.
Yes.
The biggest cost in the north is energy.
Yeah.
where people here in Thunder Bay are complaining that gasoline's hitting $1 a liter, it's up to $3 a liter further north. What can be done on the Hydro One issue?
Well, I mean, just last night we had a public meeting here in Thunder Bay, and I was quite impressed with the number of people that showed up. We had probably double of what we expected, so it was quite cramped. So we didn't need to keep the heat on too much because people kept each other warm. But it was really clear that people are just beside themselves, not just here in Thunder Bay, but across the province. But certainly in the north, the winters are longer and harsher. The climate is much more difficult to kind of to cope with, and so folks they pay more. I mean, you pay more here for electricity, and the increasing worry is that as Hydro One continues to be sold off, the costs go up, the price goes up. I mean, that has happened in virtually every jurisdiction where electricity has been privatized. Is the rates go through the roof? Even here in Ontario, when in the 90s and early 2000s, the Conservatives, deregulated and privatized the generation side of electricity, rates went up overnight by almost 25%. I mean, that it's a serious issue. People can't afford another 25% hit on their electricity rates, and so we are working really hard to get the government to to stop selling off any more shares. I mean, they've sold off 15% now. They're claiming that they're going to sell off 60%, but they're still going to keep control. Although, it seems to me that when you only have 40%, you don't have much control left. So we could do a whole show just on Hydro One, 2 or 3 shows. But we're not giving up, and the people of Thunder Bay told us loud and clearly that they're not giving up. We're going to do everything we can to push this government to not sell off any further shares of Hydro One and reverse the decision to privatize this really important public asset that brings all kinds of revenues into this province, that pay for healthcare and education and infrastructure. We're going to lose significant revenue streams, and our financial accountability officer has said that it's going to leave the province in worse financial shape. And that's so on top of leaving families and businesses in worse financial shape, it's going to leave the province as a whole in worse financial shape as well. It is absolutely the wrong thing to do, and this will be one of the things, this will, I think, be the defining moment for our Premier, that she got this wrong and refused to listen to 80% of Ontarians who don't want Hydro One sold off. She's stubbornly going ahead with it. It shows what kind of Premier we have.
Now, the big issue seems to be now from northwestern Ontario, when you go back to Queen's Park, you're well armed with a whole bunch of the northern views. Do you think that the issues are going to be heard in Queen's Park by the Premier and by the government?
Well, I mean, they're certainly going to be told by myself and Sarah Campbell, the MPP for Kenora-Rainy River. I mean, it's up to the government to hear it. I mean, we came here on what I like to call it a listening tour. People here have told me they feel like they're not being heard, that their issues are not being addressed, and that more and more they feel ignored by Queen's Park and by the Premier of this province in terms of really solving some of these problems. It's shameful that whether we're talking about healthcare, whether we're talking about hydro costs, whether we're talking about housing and homelessness, which I'm sure we'll get onto as a topic as well, the problems are getting worse and they're deepening. They're not getting better, and the frustration and the anger and the hopelessness is palpable, and that's not acceptable. I mean, we need a government that takes care of the interests of all Ontarians, not just the select few, not just the ones that are supporters of and funders of the current reigning party, the Liberals, but a government's responsible for everyone, whether you're a northerner, whether you live in the southwest, whether you live in eastern Ontario. That's what we need, and so we're determined to go back to Queen's Park and raise these issues, and that's the commitment I've made to folks as I've been kind of on this listening tour, if you will, throughout the Northwest these last couple of days.
So where to next?
So where to next? Well, I have a number of meetings this afternoon with, particularly with Indigenous youth, which I'm really looking forward to, as well as with the Deputy Grand Chief of NAN. I'm going to be talking to the Chamber of Commerce as well, because they have some concerns and issues they want to discuss with me. So it's a busy day, a busy afternoon, but it's been very heart-wrenching. I guess that's the best way to describe this last couple of days. I mean, more than once, I've had to kind of really steel myself to deal with the horror stories that I've heard, and I can't describe them in any other way. It is unacceptable that the situations that we are seeing occur here are occurring, and it's got to stop. And so we're looking forward to getting back to the south, if you will, not because it's sunny days, but because we have a lot of work to do to try to make change.
Andrea, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
I'm James in the Net News Ledger Newsroom with Andrea Horwath, leader of Ontario's New Democrats.